Greetings and welcome to the United States Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon. My name is Gennady Stoliarov II, and I am the chairman of the U.S. Transhumanist Party. Here we hold conversations with some of the world's leading thinkers in longevity, science, technology, philosophy, and politics. Like the philosophers of the Age of Enlightenment, we aim to connect every field of human endeavor and arrive at new insights to achieve longer lives, greater rationality, and the progress of our civilization. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Virtual Enlightenment Salon of April 17th, 2022. Today, we are pleased to feature a fascinating conversation on willpower, motivation, self-improvement, and some concrete practices that can help individuals achieve greater productivity and a higher quality of life. So we are joined today by an excellent panel of U.S. Transhumanist Party officers, including our Director of Visual Art, Art Ramon Garcia, our Director of Applied Innovation, David Shoemaker, and our Legislative Director, Jason Geringer. Furthermore, one of our featured guests today is well known to our regular viewers as our Director of Publication, Zach Richardson. And we also have a special guest, Simon Waslander, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of AGI Laboratory Incorporated, and he is also known for his previous TEDx talk from 2015 entitled Cocoa, Food of the Gods. So that was a very fascinating set of insights about a common ingredient that actually had some fascinating health benefits when consumed in a certain form. So welcome, Simon, and welcome, Zach. Welcome to our viewers. And today's sequence of events is going to be fairly interesting and sequential in the sense that we're going to build up to a kind of program that people may be able to implement themselves. But first, Zach is going to tell us a bit about the mind map project that he has been engaged in. So Zach, please go ahead. Zach, I think you need to unmute.
That's embarrassing. Yeah, so I found this fantastic tool online called Miro. I had noticed sometimes I'll have little surges of innovation, and I was just opening up a notepad document, just hit the Windows key, type in notepad, and start typing things down in a list. It wasn't very effective because I've had all these notepads with ideas, but the idea that sort of came to my mind that I wanted to explore a little bit is, what are the most concrete steps I can do to try and reach longevity, escape velocity? And how can I spread these to the community? How can I share them and make it something that's fun in a little bit of a way, fun and a challenge? So I popped onto Miro here, which I'd recommend you all take a look at. And this was my first mind map. I played around with it and I thought, okay, so the first thing, I love Brian Tracy. He talked about everything kind of comes down to responsibility and it being your ability to make a response. So I started writing a little bit about my time, about consciousness. With every one of these, you can add little bits of text on here, and you can then rearrange them and add more. So you can pull them over here, attach them to other ones here. And I had a lot of fun kind of going through it, thinking about, I was listening to Huberman a lot, and he was talking about temperature, saunas, cooling yourself down, doing stretching. But a lot of it for me came back to willpower, right? Because I had this list of all this stuff that I was just telling myself. It was just a big, long to-do list of, you got to do this, you got to do that. And it wasn't working. It wasn't effective. I wasn't hitting everything that I had wanted to do. I thought, okay, maybe I'm doing a little bit too much here. So Simon and I both read this book called The Willpower Instinct by Kelly McGonigal. And she talked about something that really intrigued me that was called setting up keystone habits. Now, these keystone habits are ones that enable you to do every other habit you want to do. And there's tons of literature on each one. Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. That book is amazing. Andrew Huberman's lectures. Everybody knows exercise and diet. Meditation was something that changed my life. I've been meditating a long time, but I only started again recently. So I kind of thought with these, and I went, you know what if I think of this a little bit like a game, right? Like I was playing some game on Steam. I think it was Wasteland 3. And I thought, how can I make it fun to improve my stats a little bit, right? So in the Wasteland games, you got the classic system: coordination, luck, agility, strength, speed, intelligence, charisma. Fallout, you got strength, perception, intelligence, charisma, intelligence, agility, luck. D&D has its own stats. So I thought, what about me? What about my stats? How can I, instead of just giving myself a long list of, you got to do this, you got to do that, how can I think of it as I'm buffing myself, right? I'm getting a boost to my stats. So I had made another mind map with these and played around with some various ideas. Can kind of jump around all over with them. I had discipline, I had dexterity, constitution, wisdom, endurance, charisma, being able to feel like a winner when you're doing what you're doing, intelligence for different projects I was working on. And I went, okay, so what if I take some of these stats and let's just look at the games. You've played a lot of games in your life. So from the Dungeons and Dragons wiki here, it talks about first constitution. This is important to me. For those of you that don't know, I have a heart condition that's been pretty stable for a few years. I have actually a cybernetic heart. It is grafted onto my heart, but it recently has contracted a infection that is slowly working its way up and going to cause some trouble if I don't get a heart transplant. So I'm super interested in what was said Constitution from the Dungeons and Dragons wiki. It says, Constitution is a term which encompasses the character's physique, toughness, health, and resistance to disease and poison. The higher a character's constitution, the more hit points that character will have. Constitution also is important for saving throws and fatigue-based general checks. So I looked at it and I said, okay, well, great. How do my keystone habits fit in here, right? Kelly McGonigal is talking about these keystone habits. Sleep, you're recovering and repairing, letting your body's immune system grow. Exercise, you're keeping nutrients flowing throughout your body. Diet keeps your hit points high, get some good protein. And meditation to kind of boost everything in your body, just make it all synchronize and work together. From Wasteland 3, it mentioned intelligence, and it says it's your ability to make mental connections and do tactical thinking. So once again, I thought sleep, it accelerates the connections of neurons. Exercise, you've got nutrients flowing throughout your body. Diet, same thing, looking for good things that'll keep your brain going. You want to buff your stats, not nerf them. And meditation as a non-sleep deep rest protocol to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Most people spend all day kind of wired, and if you can spend a few minutes doing rest, like actual rest, not playing a video game or drinking or something, but just closing your eyes and meditating, you can really help your body. And the last one I could pull out was charisma. And in Fallout 4, it said, charisma is your ability to charm and convince others. It affects your success to persuade others in dialogue and prices when you barter. So sleep, it helps your emotional intelligence. It makes you more cooperative. It activates mirror neurons. So when you're more in real time with a person, you kind of synchronize with their body language and their thoughts. Exercise helps you look good, keeps you energetic. Same with diet, and meditation really helps your empathy. So I thought, all right, you know what? I've got everything here that I need to buff my stats somehow. What type of a challenge can I put together for myself that'll hit all these stats? And thinking about this, I had actually referred back to one of Gennadi's pieces of literature called The Best Self-Help is Free. And he had a couple chapters, 10 and 11. One of them, I think it was chapter 2, was named The Need for External Feedback. So I thought to myself, if I'm going to make some sort of a trial or a challenge for myself to be able to attain sequentially in a few days all of these targets, can I quantify this and measure this? So it's like someone's given me an A plus or an F on my report card, right? Gennady, could you talk on quantification and productivity targets for a minute?
Yes, absolutely. And this is a treatise that one can find for free on the Rational Argumentator, which is my online publication. I will share the link to this shortly. But the purpose of this particular chapter is to encourage the reader to discover systems that can essentially allow for a convenient way to measure whatever activity one wishes to engage in. So quantification is a suitable approach for a lot of tasks where the human mind may not immediately be able to grasp all of the components. So the human mind has this limitation. It can only address a few items at a time. So if you look outside and you see a handful of objects, you might be able to distinguish between 3 objects and 5 objects, but you couldn't differentiate between 11,233 objects and 25,456 objects simply by looking at a large collection of objects. Rather, most people would just say, they see many objects. They see an immense quantity of objects, and yet the difference between 11,233 and 25,456 proportionally is a much larger increase, 126.18%, than the increase from 3 to 5, which is just an increase of 66.67%. So mathematics is an excellent tool for grasping these differences of magnitude in a way that then can be harnessed using simple and accessible rules. And when we are discussing productivity and certain values in our life that we seek to maximize, sometimes it's not enough to just look at 3 or 5 things. We need to have systems for measurement, because we are sometimes literally producing thousands or more units of output every single day. But a key insight from this chapter is that quantification can help you even if the units of measurement, the quantifiers, are not entirely reliable, even if you make them up to a certain extent, because you are then able to set certain productivity targets which would be reasonable, which would give you an idea of how much effort would be sufficient on any given day or another unit of time for which you're measuring productivity, so that you avoid 2 traps that people fall into. One of these traps is underachievement, and the other trap is perfectionism, insisting on doing so much or doing a particular task to such a level of quality that it may not be sustainable over the long term. And actually, this is why money is such a helpful tool in a lot of areas of life where you're trying to, for instance, improve your material prosperity, your ability to acquire resources. Money is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. However, it is a useful metric, an imperfect metric, but a useful metric that can help you improve the quality of your life. But there are other targets as well. For instance, units of output is a useful manufacturing target. If you're a writer and you set a daily target for the number of words that you would write or the number of essays, and likewise with other projects, if you have a certain quantity of works paintings, musical compositions, videos that you set a goal for yourself to create, that will keep you more productive than if you just say, well, I'm going to do this when I feel like it, when I find my muse, when I'm inspired to do it. But how often does that actually happen? That you are in the optimal state of mind to actually metric for any human endeavor to which productivity is relevant. And I did this a fairly long time ago now in the mid 2000s when I developed an exercise point system in order to address the question of how can various different types of exercises be commensurable with one another, so that I might not be performing the exact same kinds of exercises every day, but I want some sort of common denominator for them so that I could understand what workout is enough for a given day. So some people might use measurements like calories expended, but I actually assigned certain numbers of points to particular exercises, like a certain number of points for a minute of running, a certain number of points for a particular type of lift, like a biceps curl or a shoulder press, or a certain number of points for a push-up or a sit-up. And I'm not going to reveal the exact values of points that I allocated to those, because those might not have been the best point assignments for everybody. But the fact that I created this point system actually motivated me to meet certain point targets every day. And as a result, those systems, and there were several iterations of those systems, improved my level of physical fitness. And there were actually services that I found later on that developed these point systems and enabled people to log in a wide variety of exercises and receive a point output for the day that served a similar purpose. So Fitocracy was such a service that I used for a number of years, which I found to actually be an improvement over my makeshift exercise point systems. But I started developing my own exercise point systems back in the era when these kinds of apps or online services didn't really exist. So I maintained them using Excel spreadsheets. So
yeah, that's what I wanted to ask about and interject with before we move on to the next chapter. Is I've tried doing something similar myself, maybe not having quite the level of willpower you do, but doing something like writing down my calories for every single day or everything I eat. I can make myself do it maybe 3 or 4 days, but demonstratedly I've failed multiple times. Where did you first, how did you, I guess, decide you wanted to put everything in an Excel spreadsheet, and how much time did you spend recording this data versus, I guess, interpreting it?
Mm-hmm. I would say the greatest expenditure of effort came initially when I was designing the system, and recording the exercises initially when it was a completely manual process, I would say would have taken about 15 to 20 minutes per day thereafter, after I developed the system. Now, it helped that I was a student at the time, so I was immersed in this academic context, and I was doing homework for hours at a time. And I was also still writing essays. I was publishing the Rational Argumentator. So I was at my computer anyway, and it wasn't really that much of a transition to manage another Excel spreadsheet. I understand for people who have a different lifestyle, for instance, who go back and forth among various locations, finding the time to sit at a computer, that essentially entails a certain transition cost. And that might mean you're adding an extra 10 to 15 minutes just to get into a particular mode where you're recording these kinds of activities. If you have a mobile device, where it's easy to input something on the go and you have an app that you're using to do that, that could also save some time and effort in that regard. But I wanted to mention Chapter 11 since you're highlighting it right now. And this deals with habit formation. And a common misconception that people have that there's a necessary trade-off between quality and quantity, that you can either do a few things very well or you can do a lot of things but in a mediocre fashion. And this may be true in some cases, but it is not true in all cases, and it's not a hard fixed trade-off. Rather, over time, if you engage in certain activities, you develop habits. And these habits are default patterns of functioning. A habit is a pattern that seems natural, that seems easy to you, and that you are inclined to repeat by default. So if you have good habits, then those good habits enable you to be productive. They enable you to actually want to repeat certain beneficial activities over and over again on a regular basis. So, for instance, for me, I have a running habit. I run between 40 and 60 miles per week because I have done that so consistently, and I have figured out ways to do it reliably because I can go outside, I can run in my neighborhood. I have an elliptical trainer if the weather is poor. I can run at home. I am a member of various running groups, and I can go to the locations where those groups meet and I can run there. I can sign up for races and I can run in those races. So I have a lot of opportunities to exercise that habit. And it doesn't feel difficult for me to do that. Indeed, it feels very strange for me if I don't go running. And yet, for a lot of people, they think 40 miles a week, 60 miles a week, that is an insane amount of running. And they don't believe that they can work their way up to that level. And yet, I've been able to do it, and it does not feel difficult to me. Now, initially, when I was 13 years old, it was a bit challenging for me to run the mile. And I decided I do not want to suffer in PE class anymore. So I am going to go, this was during the summer at night, run laps around the apartment complex where I resided at the time. And initially I ran what I thought was approximately a mile, and it was difficult. But the next day I ran that course again, and I ran a little bit longer. And the day after that, I ran a little bit longer. And I was gradually building up my distance to the point where I was running multiple miles, and running a single mile felt a lot more comfortable. And then when I returned to 8th grade, the following school year, I could run the mile. At that time, it was like between a 9-minute and 10-minute pace, which was a lot faster than what I had been able to do before. And I kept up that habit over the ensuing 20 plus years. So as you develop a habit of quality, as you learn particular skills in the area that you're interested in, as you find certain more efficient ways to achieve the same result, the trade-off between quality and quantity disappears. And you can think of a lot of people who are masters of their craft, whatever that is. And when you see them at work, a lot of very high quality output looks almost effortless for them because that's their basic default pattern of functioning. And for me, this is evident, for instance, in my writing. I'm able to write an essay from start to finish without having to create multiple drafts, because I've also been writing for now over 21 years. And at the time I wrote this, this was a decade of systemic and steady efforts at writing. Now, of course, almost another decade has passed. And yet, just by writing regularly, I am able to maintain high quality of output. And creating good habits is essential for a sustainable output over time. So if you just have a burst of motivation, if you're really excited, energetic about something, you can accomplish a lot within a short amount of time, but eventually your output will fade because you have to exert a lot of energy in order to reach that kind of output. But if you create a habit, especially if you create a high quality baseline, then you can keep that up and it will not feel burdensome to you. So I would suggest the quality quantity trade off is not one's fate. It can be overcome, and building good habits is the key for doing so. So now I will turn the discussion back over to Zach because
Yeah,
he
what
would
you
like
had
to
said
build
there
off of
was
this.
really important to me because I noticed through a lot of my past efforts, I was doing bursts of work, but not being able to get that systematic baseline level you were talking about. So I guess that brought up another book Simon was telling me about. I had read this before, but I'd forgotten about it. But it's called The Power of Habit, and it's a pretty popular one. Um, Simon, I wanted to ask you what you thought about habits and what habits you have in regards to diet, sleep, and exercise, and more importantly, how you formed them.
Okay, so hey, welcome everyone. Thank you for having me on the show. It's such a wonderful experience to be here. So, habits are things that are done often enough that they don't feel effortsome anymore after a while. And for me, the most important habit for me is doing augmented fasting. I find that very important, almost just as important as sleep. So now we're going to talk a bit about an augmented fasting regime, which I developed together with a colleague from Groningen, Dr. Nise Koning, PhD. So there's a lot of work and detail that has been put into this. So just to give an introduction, so this augmented fasting was primarily at first designed as an anti-cancer therapy. So we're seeing lots of papers coming now online about fasting regimes for cancer, and this was mostly designed as that. But then later I started to practice the fasting myself. And I learned that if you're struggling with the hunger, if you're making that forceful effort, struggling with the hunger every time, it's just not going to work. You're going to be, and
Exactly.
you're going to be posting it on Facebook like, "Hey, I'm fasting every time," and because you're putting in so much effort into it. And so what I developed was a combination approach of AMPK SIRT1 axis activators combined with melatonin, vitamin D3, various fatty acids such as oleic acid and marine tree polyunsaturated fatty acids, vitamin A, and zinc, all of which have an important part within the fasting regime and really strengthen each other massively. So let me go to to give a brief introduction, we all know that caloric restriction reverses many of the aspects of aging and epigenetic age. It is proven in most mice strains that it significantly enhances lifespan. We know that. That's a fact. It's been proven so many times over. Fasting per unit of time is exponentially more powerful than caloric restriction, but as well, the risks start to go up as well. If you're fasting for really long periods of time, you might need mineral supplementation or some salt water and those kinds of things. But if you do I would say a combinatorial hormetics fast, maybe 3 to 5 days once a month, I think you can already reverse many of the aspects of aging and epigenetic age just right there. And for more, how do we say, disease cases, it really depends on the disease, how well fed a person is a person in a good nutritious state. So the Cahill studies from 1967 show that a 40-day fast is indeed possible. Although I'm not recommending a fast that long here, but the things that are possible are very, very interesting. So let's get into the details. So like I said, caloric restriction in most mice models does extend lifespan quite significantly. And we've seen in the human caloric restriction studies that it does have positive effects on inflammation, blood sugar control, and weight and body weight and those kinds of aspects. Fasting also extends lifespan in mice. These are from the Longo study, Longo's group. Walter Longo.
Longo, right?
Walter Longo, yes, Walter Longo. He also wrote various fasting books. So this data is from one of his mice studies. And fasting induces the production in mammals of a ketone body called beta-hydroxybutyrate. So the fatty acids from the fat cells go to the liver, where they're changed into beta-hydroxybutyrate and a little bit of acetoate. And the main ketone body is beta-hydroxybutyrate, and that is what feeds the brain during prolonged starvation or prolonged fasting. And beta-hydroxybutyrate has very, very potent signaling activities. So so very importantly, it's a histone deacetylase inhibitor. It has histone beta-hydroxybutylation. It reduces inflammation of the NLP3 inflammasome, and it also increases the production of acetyl-CoA. And lastly, it's a NAD sparing concept going on there. So glucose burns 4 NAD molecules, while beta-hydroxybutyrate only uses 2 NAD molecules. So you're automatically increasing your cell's NAD, and therefore it's SIRT1, SIRT2-in-1 activity going on there. It's also very known for its effects in epilepsy and those kinds of aspects. But beta-hydroxybutyrate, when it was first mentioned that it was an HDAC inhibitor, so a histone deacetylase inhibitor, it was front page news in Science. It was published in Science by Verdin's group. So that was really exciting news back then. So here are more details of the histone deacetylase inhibition, what really does happen. So DNA is wrapped around histones. It's tightly wrapped. It's not transcribing anything, so transcription is really low. So when the beta-hydroxybutyrate comes, it opens up the histones for DNA translation to take place. And the histones are also hyperacetylated because the beta-hydroxybutyrate also increases the acetyl coenzyme A pool. And you have the transcription of all kinds of really beneficial genes, such as PGC1 alpha, which is well known as an exercise gene. You have FOXO3A, which is for oxidative stress. And you're also starting to activate a bit, but that takes 9 days of fasting, the FGF21 pathway, which is by far the most powerful AMPK activator out there. Just to give a hint of how powerful FGF21 is. So assuming you run 45 minutes a day, do vigorous running 45 minutes a day, and do that 5 times a week, you'll be increasing a stress marker, an energetic stress marker from your fat cells called adiponectin. Adiponectin will increase by roughly 100%. Now, FGF21 analogs in humans increase adiponectin by 2,200%. So you're really getting a profound AMPK activation going on there if you can activate the FGF21 pathways. So this is a full overview of the AMPK pathway. So AMPK can be activated via various parts, via SIRT1, LKB1. Reduction in mTOR also helps with AMPK activation. We see here that it's the center, it's the nucleus of many anti-aging things going on there. So AMPK SIRT1 activation is a bit of the center nexus that coordinates many processes, highly complex interconnected processes that induce a profound anti-aging state. Like I hope Lish Paris is listening to this so she can help me with an FGF21 alpha clodo gene therapy. But besides that, we see that AMPK also increases telomerase activity and all kinds of other really beneficial things going on there. So there, like I said, there are different ways to activate AMPK. You have the calcium pathway, you have the LKB1 pathway, and you have the AMP pathway to activate the AMPK nexus. And as you can see, it blocks all the anabolic pathways and activates the catabolic pathways that are known to have anti-aging effects, such as fatty acid oxidation, autophagy, and those kinds of aspects. So we know now metformin, it's a diabetes drug from the 60s, is a pretty potent AMPK activator because it reduces mitochondrial energy production. So you're reducing energy production, creating a small energetic stress situation in the cells, which then increase AMPK via the reduction in ATP and via an increase in AMP.
Yeah, Simon, could you talk a little bit? That's one thing we hear about a lot in the anti-aging community is one is the NAD and NADH. I'm sure a lot of our viewers heard those and went, oh, I got told to take those as a vitamin sometime.
Yeah.
The other thing is the AMPK and SIRT1. That's one I'm hearing more and more from Rhonda Patrick and many other anti-aging advocates. Can you describe maybe a sort of overview of how that works at a digestible level?
Okay, so you have two things going on in the cell. You have the anabolic pathways, which are controlled by mTOR. So like if you're eating a lot of protein and sugar and becoming a really buff dude, you're really overactivating mTOR, which is known on the long term. Look at all those bodybuilders when they grow old. It's definitely not pretty. And then at the other side, you have the catabolic pathways, which is AMPK SIRT1. So SIRT2 and 1 is I'm not sure if it's not a nuclear base. It's in the cytoplasm. So SIRT1 activates IMPK via NAM. If NAD plus rises, SIRT1 activity also automatically rises as well.
Did you just say NAD plus?
NAD.
NAD. Like the
NAD
nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, right?
Yeah, the NAD plus has to rise. And that in turn activates SIRT1, which then activates in a feedback loop AMPK and then SIRT1 again, and it becomes a really nice fast forward feedback loop, which really gets you into a deep fasting state. So we know that metformin is an AMPK activator, sorry?
Yeah, and NAD plus and NADH, both of those are in the Krebs cycle, and they have to deal with production of ATP. Am I correct on that?
Yes, they're part of the ATP production cycle. And if you're burning glucose, it uses 4 NAD molecules. If you're burning beta-hydroxybutyrate, it only uses 2 NAD molecules. So you have an automatic increase in NAD when you're in a fasting state, when you're burning fat instead of sugar as a fuel. So,
yeah, if any, a lot of us all love Aubrey de Grey. His book, Ending Aging, I would recommend to anybody that wants to hear about the Krebs cycle in sort of a intelligent layman's description of it. The first couple chapters on the work of mitochondria for producing ATP, I reread that chapter quite a bit and find myself thinking, oh, so that's why I'm being told to take this vitamin or that vitamin. And I'd really recommend that chapter to anybody.
Yeah.
whole book.
No, but what's also very important, if we go a little bit back, is that beta-hydroxybutyrate produces 10% more ATP per unit of beta-hydroxybutyrate versus per unit of glucose. But it also...
Really? That's
Yeah,
why I'm buzzing so much after being on ketosis for a day or two.
and you're also, the beta-hydroxybutyrate is a much cleaner fuel source. You're producing less oxidative stress, while at the same time the oxidative stress resistance genes are turned on. So you're
Can
really
you remind us what is oxidative stress? What is that? And
so oxidative stress is basically from producing energy, and from all of that production, oxidants tend to come along, and oxidants are very stressful for the cell, and there are various defense layers such as glutathione and melatonin and all kinds of other things going on to reduce the oxidative stress in the mitochondria. If the mitochondria are producing too much oxidative stress, then everything really goes haywire, and you might even get cell apoptosis if the oxidative stress is far too high.
no, hold on. I thought cell apoptosis was a good thing. Isn't that one of the things we're doing with fasting, where we want those cells, the old dead cells, to burst, and I think the CD8 cells, so we can replenish them?
You want the autophagy. You want
that's the word.
You want the autophagy, but you don't want all your healthy cells to die as well, and that doesn't happen.
Right.
So that definitely does not happen with fasting. But the thing is, you want to keep your healthy cells healthy and kill off any really bad cells going on there. But going back, so we just discussed metformin. Metformin also is a SIRT1 activator by reducing the NK saturation values of SIRT1. So it makes SIRT1 more receptive to NAD. So basically, if your NAD is low, and if you add some metformin, it still works. It will still activate SIRT1. So it's an NK.
Why can't I just take some NAD though?
So there are many NAD supplements out there, but they only increase NAD by like 30-40%, while the beta-hydroxybutyrate doubles it. So you're talking about a much more powerful effect going on there.
So fasting is going to give you hugely more energy with the NAD process, because you're using beta-hydroxyate instead of the glycolysis to produce those ATPs that fuel your cells.
Precisely. And if you add things like metformin and alpha-lipoic acid, so alpha-lipoic acid...
that's one you had me taking.
And so that's an AMPK activator via the calcium route. So you're taking another route to activate AMPK. And this is from a paper that really explains all of the details in that regard. And then you have leucine, which is a really not so known. It's not a well-known secret. It's a bit of a secret. So leucine is a SIRT1 NK saturation value reducer. So basically, if you add leucine into the mix, it makes your NAD twice as powerful. So if you combine fasting with leucine, you'll be in the highest states of fasting really quickly with regards to the SIRT1 activity. And SIRT1 activates AMPK, and AMPK activates SIRT1 again, and you get that really powerful feedback loop going, which we want. We want as much powerful fasting as we can get, as we know that fasting is by far the healthiest thing you can possibly be doing. And also for intelligence, augmentation, well-being, body composition, endurance training, and especially I've experienced this so many times, the cognitive enhancement effects are truly profound. And now we're talking about melatonin, which I also add to the fasting regime. It's a very powerful anti-cancer agent as well. Melatonin is known.
When do you take it? Do you take it before bed, or do you actually take it during the day as well?
So I take it during the day as well. I got
Really?
used to it. So I take it with my tea mixtures, with my polyphenolic tea mixtures. I take it with my mix of breakfast tea, green tea, and rooibos tea. I take 10 milligrams of melatonin every time I take tea because melatonin synergistically works with the polyphenols as well to get you into that even deeper fasting states. So, so melatonin is by far the most powerful antioxidant out there. It can one single melatonin molecule can scavenge 7 oxidants. So it's a highly powerful antioxidant in itself, but it also activates various antioxidant routes within the cell that increase antioxidant stress resistance as well. So you got the beta-hydroxybutyrate doing that, reducing the stress. Then you got some melatonin, reducing the stress and adding even more defenses, really creating something nice. And melatonin is also a very powerful RNA. Via microRNA, it can have very potent effects on circadian rhythms, cancer suppression, autism, arterial sclerosis, liver sclerosis, cell senescence via the RNA pathways that are going on there. So it's very it's a very exciting molecule. And then
you mentioned 7. You said it would reduce like 7 antioxidants.
Yeah.
Was that 7 types of oxidants or 7 quantities of some oxidant? And how many oxidants is produced for each level of the Krebs cycle, or how does that work?
Okay, so I don't know out of my head how many oxidants are produced by one Krebs cycle. That's a really good question. I'll look into that. But basically, it can reduce 7 oxidants with one molecule, and the molecule itself is every single time recycled as well. So you got some really oxidative stress reduction going on there. So it's a highly powerful antioxidant, and that's basically what I want to get home to. So
amazing.
And then you have vitamin D, which is actually a precursor to a steroid hormone, which is also a very, very potent geroprotector. It has very potent epigenetic effects, working mostly via histone acetyltransferase. So it adds acetyl groups to the histones. And as we've seen, the beta-hydroxybutyrate increases the acetyl coenzyme pool, and if you have the vitamin D, you add more acetyltransferases, you got a really beautiful mix going. There are studies on synthetic HDAC and vitamin D3 analogs, which do have potent effects on various very aggressive cancer cell lines, which have been tested in mice and various cell lines. So doing a fasting with vitamin D and with some melatonin will have very powerful effects on cancer. But with regards to aging, we see here in this slide it reduces oxidative stress, reduces inflammation. It helps with the epigenetics, which I just discussed with the histone acetyltransferase, and it helps with the telomere shortening. So it is a very interesting substance to be taking during fasting, because fasting basically enhances the effects of vitamin D even more. And now we're going to talk about the PPR nuclear receptor family. I barely see this on the normal longevity side. So you have the fatty acid receptors within your nucleus that sense the presence of certain fatty acids, and these fatty acid sensors are very, very powerful. Where with synthetic analogs tested in humans, they can reduce hemoglobin B1AC by 3 points. 3 points, sometimes 4 points, which is just huge. You're taking a diabetic and you're making him just a regular normal glucose type person. So this is a very potent pathway, and it's activated by various fatty acids. So PPR, you have PPR alpha, you have PPR beta and delta, and you have PPR gamma. And each of them have different different functions within the fatty acid mobilization and how they interact with each other. So oleic acid and marine omega-3 acids such as APA and DHA, these are potent PPR alpha and gamma, PPR alpha and gamma receptor activators. Again, in a fasting state, so PPR alpha is one of the most powerful FGF21 inducers out there. So if you're fasting for a few days and you take a bolus of olive oil, because olive oil is basically oleic acid, you will be producing FGF21, which is really something that you want to produce and want to be on. If you're in the productivity range, if you want to be as productive and as happy as possible, that's one of the places you want to go. And so you have the marine omega-3s, which also activate the others. The PPR delta and the PPR gamma are activated by the omega-3 fatty acids. And again, you see very potent effects against diabetes from these synthetic analogs, at least. And then comes another really interesting vitamin. Vitamin A is not that well known, but it is a partner for the PPR and vitamin D receptor nuclear family. So it makes the vitamin D and the PPR receptor family all the more powerful again. So you're making.
Can you tell us what is PPAR?
PPAR is the name of the peroximum. So it's the shortened word for the nuclear receptors that sense fatty acids entering the cell. So you have different PPR receptors. You have PPR alpha, which can be activated via olive oil. You have PPR beta and delta, which are activated by exercise mostly. So PPR delta is the exercise PPR, but can also be activated by certain omega-3 fatty acids. And you have PPR delta, which is also activated by omega-3 fatty acids. So these are receptors in the cell nucleus that sense fatty acid intake, basically.
Now, when you take fatty acids, like to supplement your diet, you had me taking some omega-3s. I take some Nordic Naturals fish oil in the morning. And then I have a transhumanist cocoa, I call it, which is some MCT oil and some flaxseed oil inside a large cup of cocoa, which everybody should check out Simon's TED Talk on that. That got me drinking 3 cups of transhumanist cocoa a day. But what are the benefits and drawbacks of these various oils, like omega-3 versus flaxseed, or do they help each other, or how's that work?
Well, so flaxseed oil and fish oil have profound synergy with each other.
Right.
We don't know why precisely, but there have been studies in humans from large cohorts type studies that show that if you take flaxseed oil together with the fish-based omega-3 oils, that you can reduce your heart disease risk by 40%. Some ridiculous number there. So that was a study in Southeastern Asia that showed that synergy going on there. And I think I can hint, I believe that it might be that it's due to the fact because the flaxseed oil will be changed into omega-3 oils in the cell, so it gets turned into that. But you're basically all the parts of the production of omega-3 oils will be saturated. So you're saturating all those pathways at once, and that at once, and I think that is why it's so synergistic.
Yeah, it's definitely helped me, man. I'll tell you, I went through a little bit of keto flu. I looked it up, and that's what it was called. And that was yesterday morning. And my nose was just kind of running. I felt like I had a little bit of headache. But I took the supplements you recommended, and I ended up feeling quite a bit better. I had a Spray for Life vitamin D that I ended up spraying several times, that it just boosted up my vitamin D. And then I had a melatonin one as well, which interestingly, the Spray for Life, the melatonin actually includes zinc as well, which I realized I wasn't getting enough of looking at my regimen and what you had recommended. But the alpha lipoic acid, I think that really kicked things off. That's some good stuff.
Yeah, it's a pretty potent AMPK activator, and if you combine it with the leucine, which basically makes all the AMPK activators twice as powerful, you'll be going into deep fasting in no time.
So tell me, remind us again, what is an AMPK activator?
So an AMPK activator is that activates the central energy sensing axis AMPK. So AMPK is the energy sensor axis that senses energy stress. So when you're fasting, when you're exercising, when you're basically doing healthy things, also eating vegetables, eating your fiber, all of them via different routes activate AMPK. And if you can activate AMPK using different routes without over supplementing a single route, but activating it from different angles, you get maximal AMPK activation, which will put you in an FGF21 zone, which is where you want to be at eventually.
So we hear about BCAAs sometime, your leucine, your isoleucine, and I forget the other one, but why is it in particular that you recommended leucine versus branched chain amino acids or other amino acids in general?
All right. Because leucine is the one that has the sirtuin-1 NK saturation value reduction capability, and the other branched chain amino acids don't have that. And you want to be in a. I have not seen that branched chain amino acids in themselves inhibit the fasting state, but you want to be as pure as possible. And then I would only recommend the leucine. So that's why I only recommended the leucine, since that is really a sirtuin-1 NK saturation value reducer. So it makes the leucine just makes your AMPK activators twice as powerful, basically.
Nice.
So that's really nice.
Yeah, that one doesn't taste good, I'll be honest. I got some butter for it, and I think the transhumanist cocoa might need a bit of a revision, because love the cocoa with just the flaxseed oil and the MCT oil like you recommended, but man, I add the leucine, and might need to tweak my recipe a little bit, or have that in a different supplement.
You can buy it in tablet form. That's the easiest.
I already got like a however many pound bag, so I'm kind of committed. I've crossed that Rubicon.
Cross the Rubicon. So, and then talking about vitamin A, so this synergizes with the PPR receptors and with the vitamin D nuclear receptors. They're co-ligands, so it makes vitamin D and the PPR activators more powerful again. So just making everything more powerful. And lastly, we'll talk about zinc. So we've seen studies in mice that lithium is a GSK3 beta inhibitor, and GSK3 beta inhibition has been shown to expand lifespan a little bit, not that much, maybe 5-10%, something like that. But zinc is a safe GSK3 beta inhibitor without messing up your kidneys and needing a kidney transplant. So it's a very safe.
Tell us about that. What about ketoacidosis? Or is there any worries for that going on sort of a augmented fasting? Or how do you?
I can understand that question. So ketoacidosis happens in very rare cases where people have a genetic defect that they produce far too much beta hydroxybutyrate. So you come in ketoacidosis when your beta hydroxybutyrate levels are at like 20 millimole per liter, 50 millimole per liter. In normal humans, even with augmented, even if you're in an augmented state and you're cycling the entire day and juicing yourself with the fatty acids, you'll never go beyond 7 millimole per liter of ketosis.
Great. I got the strips like you recommended and test myself, and it was funny seeing the color on those ones change from like a light sort of cream color to all of a sudden you got that good purple black when you know you're okay.
Yeah.
I'm in the ketosis, I've been doing it right.
And actually, I recommend you want to stay in the fasting for a pretty long period and combine it with the supplements, combine it with the vitamin D, with the melatonin, with the zinc. So zinc, as a GSK3 beta inhibitor, combined with ketosis, activates FGF21 pathways in your astrocytes. So in your brain, you have the astrocyte cells. You have your astrocyte cells right next to your neurons. And the zinc and the ketosis combined make your astrocyte produce FGF21 for your brain cells. So you'll be in a really smart augmented state and working on the intelligence explosion.
Talk about intelligence for a minute, because that's one thing I feel like my willpower increased a little bit, but also, I feel like I'm making some connections. Like working on the website a little bit for AGI Laboratory, I felt like I had sort of a burst of, okay, here, let's grab each component I need and make things synergize with each other on Canva. But how does it affect intelligence?
Okay, so I can talk ages about this, but so fasting by far, and I've experimented with NoPep. I've experimented even with Rolipram, a PDE4 inhibitor, an experimental molecule, and with NoPep mixed with cocoa and all kinds of combinations of cardio and doing those kinds of things. Fasting by far, especially the longer fasts, are by far the most potent cognitive enhancers I've touched in anything I've tried.
I'm so excited.
So seriously, the fasting with the zinc and the vitamin D really do enhance cognition, well-being, and just your general state of well-being as well. That doesn't have to be forgotten. So you're smarter, but you're also feeling good. So you will be more productive. You want to be more productive. You want to do some writing or working. So it's a really great state to be in, to be in such an augmented fast state. And especially so if we go into the details, fasting increases massively the brain-derived neurotrophic factor production. So your hippocampus is making new brain cells, and also, and this comes back to willpower. When you're fasting and meditating, you're increasing the thickness of your prefrontal cortex. So fasting makes the prefrontal cortex thicker, which allows for forever better impulse inhibition capabilities. So let's say you're struggling with, I don't know, nicotine addiction, for example. Doing fasting cycles combined with meditation, which is also proven from fMRI studies in Buddhist monks that their prefrontal cortex is thicker. If you combine the fasting and the meditation, your prefrontal cortex will be thicker eventually with time. And especially
how is that? You should provide a link to the study for that for our viewers, because that is the thing that so far excites me the most, is the idea because the way with willpower, it's an inhibition, it's a top down thing. You have your lizard brain first make I'm hungry, I want alcohol, I want food, I want donuts, but then it's like that
there's a way to grow
cortex pushes it down.
All right, so while Simon shares the link with us, and Simon, please feel free to post it in our private chat, I would like to highlight a few questions and comments that we have received. First of all, Thank you to Celeste Castaldo for her most generous super chat, and she says, you are amazing. She also says that she's flying from Monterey to San Francisco right now, and we'll review this salon discussion later. She points out this is a great feature of our salons, that we preserve the recordings, so they are available for playback at the same YouTube link as the stream. And we also have a version saved on Odyssey every time we stream. So you have multiple ways of accessing these recordings, no matter where you are in the world. And thank you very much, Celeste. Also, we have a super chat from our friend Alan Crowley, who highlighted a comment from Daniel Twett. If fasting increases lifespan, shouldn't they call it slowing? Very funny. And
hey, I'm thinking about calling it slowing from now on. I'm
like
it may slow down the aging process. It may make one's cognition faster if what Simon is saying is accurate. And then we have a super chat as well from our friend Gloria Soria from Argentina. So thank you, Gloria. Now we have a number of questions from our audience as well. And I would like to address a few of those before we delve into Zach's concept of the transhumanist trial. But the first one comes to us both from David Shoemaker and Alan Crowley, and they're asking essentially, where can they get more information about augmented fasting? Are there books, websites, podcasts, other
Simon's
kinds
PDF.
of resources?
I have an elaborate PDF which I sent to Zach. I'll quickly see if I can find it. I wrote an extensive aging review, so I'll see if I can find the file right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I bet it's going to be good too.
Wait, let me see.
Can tell you really
Excellent.
did your homework on this, man.
Well, it's great because I like to interject a little bit when I miss things, but I have a feeling that I help in a way doing that, or I'm hoping I do, and it isn't annoying because there are some points where I'll say, oh man, he's using a couple words I've heard before, and I want to know this stuff, but how does that connect again?
Can you send a file via the chat or something? I can share the link to it.
Yes, one can share the link via the chat. So if you send us the link in the private chat, we can elevate it to the main screen. But in the meantime, I'm sharing the paper that you previously provided, Simon, which is beta hydroxybutyrate in the brain, one molecule, multiple mechanisms. This was published in 2016, and the authors are Lavanya B. Achanta and Caroline D. Ray. So this is some interesting reading. And while Simon is sharing the link to his compilation, we have an interesting question from John H., who writes that he would like to see tighter metrics on all of these approaches. What improvements, if any, can we consistently, reliably measure in humans following any of these protocols?
Sorry, what was the question?
So what improvements, if any, can we consistently and reliably measure in humans following any of these augmented fasting protocols? Are you aware of studies that show the health benefits?
So Longo did many studies. Wait, let me try to find the Longo studies as well. This is my internal aging review. So my aging review that I wrote. So it covers all things aging. So if people are interested, we talk about metformin, rapamycin, 17-alpha estradiol, metformin, enalapril, melatonin, lithium, vitamin D3, polyphenols, telomerase gene therapy. We got it all in this review, so I hope people like it. And consistently what you can expect from following these protocols. Well, it really depends on what the goal of the fasting is. I mean, if you're doing the augmented fast for well-being, if you're doing it for anti-aging, if you're doing it for blood sugar control, for heart health, and all of the measurements that you'll be taking and making will be dependent on the goal that you take it for. But obviously, let me see if I can find the Longo study Science, and that was published in Science, fasting study.
Yes, and in the meantime, I've linked to the internal aging review PDF by Simon. You may want to enable public access on that document since you've sent the link.
Mm-hmm. Right, let me. Yeah, I've enabled it.
All right, thank you. And hopefully that will mean that our viewers will be able to access the document. I can access it now. It is titled Aging Review Full Article. So please, everyone, download this PDF and read it so that you can learn Simon's insights on the subject. And now also, I wanted to ask this question from Pam Keefe. She writes that she feels nauseous when taking supplements while fasting. And of course, that's the premise of augmented fasting. How do you overcome that?
So it really depends, like what kind of supplements are you taking? How do you overcome that? Well, basically lowering the dose. Dividing the doses over the day, over the entire day, not taking a huge bolus dose. Those are tactics, and dose reduction. And instead of taking a large dose, reducing the overall dose. Those are the two tactics that reduce nausea from taking supplements during fasting.
Yes, thank you very much, Simon, for answering that question. And a related question is one that I have certainly been curious about because I am a runner, a long-distance runner. During one of my daily runs, which can be anywhere between 5 and 8 miles, I can burn easily 600 to 900 calories.
Yeah.
And when I do my longer runs, that number goes into the 4 digits. So in terms of fasting, of course, one needs to have energy in order to burn energy. If one doesn't have enough energy, then one's running ability becomes compromised. One starts to run more slowly. So how does one overcome that? How can one integrate fasting with running? Or any sort of other endurance exercise.
Precisely. So when I started my fasting journey, I would combine it with cycling. So I find cycling a bit more efficient compared with running. I was never that good of a runner, but I could cycle for 3 to 5 hours a day, well fasted. And the key is you have to get used to the fat oxidation state to quickly get into that beta-hydroxybutyrate state. And there are many studies that have been done by, I forgot the name of the researcher. He's really famous. So fasting enhances exercise capabilities once you get used to it. So there's that uncanny valley where it reduces exercise capabilities for a period. But if you're in deep ketosis, you can run for miles and miles or cycle for miles and miles and not feel a single thing and feel pretty great while doing it. And it's all part of training low. So training without eating, training on an empty stomach in the morning, and those are tactics that increase your fatty oxidation resilience, so that you could start running while fasting. And I've done much cardio while fasting. I mean, I've done sometimes in one of my record days, I cycled 8 hours in a single day while fasted. Didn't eat a single calorie, and cycled 8 hours, burning 10,000 calories in a single day while fasted. So it is possible to combine fasting with cardio exercise. It definitely is, and they enormously enhance each other. So it takes 3 days of fasting to reach 2 to 3 millimole per liter beta hydroxybutyrate levels. If you're fasting for 1 day and you did a 1 hour run, you will already be at those levels of beta hydroxybutyrate with the running. So running and cycling and just normal cardio exercise massively increases the potency of fasting. Yes.
Interesting. So those practices can be synergistic if done properly. Of course, I would imagine in order to be able to run successfully while fasting for multiple days, and the longest I've ever fasted was 24 hours, but one would have to have some sort of supplementation, because I noticed, so the first 16 hours of that 24-hour fast felt fine. But afterward, I definitely felt my energy beginning to wane, and it was difficult to sometimes stay awake or maintain clarity of focus. But that was just an unaugmented fast. It was just not eating for 24 hours. And I had actually run around hour 9 of that fast. And the run felt fine, because if one doesn't eat for a few hours before running, one actually feels lighter, and it's a bit easier to run than if one runs on a full stomach. But definitely after the 16-hour mark, I think I had some energy depleted from the running, and then I hadn't been eating for a long time. So I began to feel the mental effects of that.
Well, that's just you're not used to the fat oxidation state. So the fat oxidation, switching from glucose to fat oxidation, is that's what you do with various fasting cycles, and with augmented fasting, that switch goes as seamlessly as possible, and that you can stay in fat oxidation for really long and do very strenuous amounts of cardio for long periods of time. This was really extreme. I'm going to tell this to the viewers with a clear warning of not to do it. But I once fasted for 10 days while doing 3 hours of intense cycling a day. On top of that,
Jesus, man.
Yeah, so I did do that once, but that was a really fun experience, and I mean I really liked it, and I lost 10 kilograms or 9.8 kilograms. There's a lot of water weight obviously in that calculation too, but I lost a really big amount of weight in 10 days. So it was a nice experiment. I can tell you that.
You know, it's weird that this is really similar to what my football coach used to talk about how to get us ready to get into the zone, he would call it. And it's that whole process where you're talking about, where you switch from burning glucose to fat, you know. So this is really interesting. I always like to know the why about things. I figure like when you know the why of everything, then it sticks with you better, you know, and you understand it. So I'm loving this. So go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Jason. And I would like to address one more audience question before we move on to the transhumanist trial, because Daniel Twett is curious whether external aging is highly differentiated from internal aging. And I think what he means by this is if you look at a person and you can approximately tell what their biological age is, at least these days, since we don't yet have extensive biological age reversal at the very least. So you can look at me and you can see someone in his 30s, for instance. And is that an indication necessarily that is highly correlated with internal aging. So can you look at someone and say, well, their organs are of a similar age, or could you have someone who looks like he's in his 30s but have organs typical of someone in his 60s or in his 20s, or vice versa? Can you have someone who looks 60 but has much younger internal components?
That's a very great question. Deep longevity has an algorithm, a deep neural network based algorithm that uses the photo technology. So they take a picture of you, and their deep neural networks will tell you how old you are on a biological age basis. So the technology is already there. It's very valid. It's proven. And I would refer you to Deep Longevity in Hong Kong. Their website, they have all the information, all their aging clocks online. They have various aging clocks.
Yes, thank you for that recommendation, and we will post a link to Deep Longevity shortly. But first, I would like to fit in this one question from John H. He wonders, when we talk about fasting, are we referring to absolute fasting, like zero intake of anything, or is it modified in some respect? Because I know there are people who have fasts where they can consume certain things, and of course water is one of them, but there could be some additions as well. Of course, you're talking about supplementation, so taking in some substances, and even the pills that you take, they have a certain small number of calories as well, right?
Most of them don't, not that I know of.
All right.
0 calorie.
It's a 0 calorie fast, but other substances.
Besides, if you're supplementing with the oils, indeed, oils, you are getting the calories, so that is very true. But the oils enhance the fasting massively, so I don't care about maybe 100, 200 calories on oils a day, because it enhances it so much.
And Art Ramon, you mentioned black coffee in your comments. So have you tried something like a fast that included an allowance for coffee?
Yeah, I used to do a lot of fasting back in 2016, 2017, and I never counted black coffee. I don't think it has any calories. And I used to do fasted hikes, 10 miles and 4,000 feet of elevation gain in a fasted state. And I was able to do it. It took some time to be able to do that. But a lot of times afterwards, even when I got accustomed to that, I would have extreme sleepiness driving on the way home before I had anything to eat. And to the point where I was almost getting close to passing out driving.
Okay.
So I had to stop by a store and get like an energy drink to stay awake on the way home when I would finally get my first meal. So, but yeah, that's what I would have done. Usually the black coffee, I wouldn't do that while hiking. That was more like when I'm at home during a work day. But I have done exercise fast, and the sleepiness was a huge problem. So.
Yes, and this is a situation that I can identify with, because also during a day when I've had a long run and I haven't eaten enough to replace the calories that I burned, I may also feel a certain involuntary sleepiness, but that could also be combined with perhaps getting less sleep than I need on a daily basis. So it could be a multitude of factors that contributes to that, but definitely how to remain energetic, especially how to avoid involuntarily falling asleep while on a fast or while having a net calorie deficit, is an important question. So perhaps this is a good occasion for Zach to delve into the transhumanist trial, because it has a variety of components and sleep is one of them. So Zach, please feel free to proceed and let me know when you want to share your screen as well.
Sure, you can go ahead and share my screen. So the transhumanist trial was my idea of grabbing 8 things that would kind of tie in to these stats I was thinking of, right? And most importantly, they go back to one thing that Gennady was talking about in The Best Self-Help is Free, which is quantifying what you can do. So I wanted to grab a few things for myself that were quantifiable, mostly, and also, more importantly, were auto-recorded. I don't like bookkeeping. They say it's important to keep a food journal, keep an exercise journal. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to just put on my Fitbit, and it's going to measure all that for me. So I tried to say, okay, what are some things that are already being measured that I can start making part of my digital identity that are recorded automatically without me having to open up an app and type something in and all that. So one of them is with Fitbit. It's kind of funny. One thing in the Power of Habit and also the Willpower Instinct talked about pre-commitment. So I knew I was going to do this for a week, and it took me several days to be able to get every one of these down. The idea of the transhumanist trial is that you've got 8 factors here that are auto-measured, and I wanted to get the audience's input on these and what they think. I was playing around with the idea of 8. You get 8,000 steps, you get 8 hours of sleep. But most importantly, these things are kind of auto-measured. Like with this Fitbit Inspire 2, it's about $70, and I can go to my Fitbit screen, and I can pop to my dashboard and see that not today, but yesterday, first day I hit my goal, 8,000 steps. So I was proud of myself. I had to go walk quite a bit. This I'm playing with a little bit because I think it should be 8 hours. I think it counts how much time you spend in bed, not actually asleep. I had kind of a restless night, to be honest. I woke up feeling fresh, and then it was also the first day I had got into, and this is beautiful, right? It's auto measured. All this stuff is tracked. Like it's, great Gennady had his spreadsheet to write these things down, but I'm getting them written down every 5 minutes is how often I'm tracking this with this transhumanist technology. So I pushed myself and I just sprinted as hard as I could, which is, pretty pathetic for a guy with a heart issue. And I got into my target heart rate just once for the first time in a while. And I was so damn proud of myself because I had finished these 8 habits, but I did all of them. So there's kind of a funny quote called, "If you can't measure it, you can't manage it." And it's attributed to a guy named Deming. But the funny thing is, if you go to the Deming Institute, they say, this is so misquoted. The actual quote is, "It is false to say that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. There are qualitative measures that can be used too." So it's funny because people just remember part of the quote. That's the exact opposite. So I decided to include one qualitative thing, which is that I was getting a little messy. And each night I'd take a picture of my room. It's perfectly clean. And it's one that, and I know it's clean because I'm willing to share it with the world. So I think that's part of the trials. If you can get your room clean enough to the point that you're willing to share it with people, then you're good to go. One of it was intelligence. It's some sort of learning. I had been doing Codecademy, right? And the fun thing with that, I've been doing that for a while, is that, again, it auto measures where you're progressing on the course. I'm learning some C# to help with my understanding of the technologies of AGI laboratories. But every one of these, I guess with the exception of number 8, is something that is measured without me having to write something in a book. It's all measured automatically. Waking up, I highly recommend it. Best meditation app there is to anybody. I meditated 10 years and I didn't really progress as much until I went through the Waking Up beginning course, and it will blow your mind. He said one thing about how the purpose of meditation isn't just for health or de-stress. That's a great side benefit, but it's to understand the fundamental nature of the mind. So I'm really excited to have started meditating again with Simon's encouragement. He's been my fasting coach the past few days. And I tested my ketones and I'm in the right range, but this isn't something that's auto measured, so it doesn't quite fit into my theme here. I'm thinking this might be just part of the fasting blood sugar under 100. I could include that here. I'm
Now, for the
wondering if the
fasting,
audience had any suggestions on what the eighth thing could be that would be auto measured, that you wouldn't have to really write something down somewhere. You know, where for learning you have to type some code, and for meditating you got to do the meditation and turn it on. But what's something else that could be measured? Does anybody have any ideas?
before we solicit audience ideas, and by all means, to our viewers, please put any suggestions that you have in the chat and we can consider them. I am curious with regard to the fasting blood sugar measurement. Do you have a continuous glucose monitor?
No, but what I do is, so that's one, I guess you could, technically say I'm recording it, but this guy right here links in Bluetooth to my phone. So I just regularly in the morning wake up, grab a strip, quick poke, and just drop it on the strip and check out what I got. And it's really cool seeing it go up and down with if you eat a little bit one night or if you don't. But that's auto recorded in Bluetooth to my phone. So it's something that if I wanted to tell someone else I did the transhumanist trial, I wouldn't just say, yeah, I did it. I'd actually have external things that had monitored and measured this and then shown that it's data that's there that someone could look at and externally validate. Oh yeah, he completed all those requirements. So that was part of it for me, is getting that external feedback, or making that a mandatory part of the trial. Since we live in the world, you need feedback.
Yes, and I definitely agree with the importance of metrics and external feedback. Now, Daniel Twett has a suggestion of measuring blood oxygen saturation upon waking. That would seem to require a device as well.
I think I could do that maybe with like an Aura ring, which is something that I'm considering, but that's a little bit currently outside my budget. I wanted to do minimum money with maximum impact, and I did some research and I found the Fitbit Inspire 2 got me really everything I wanted with checking out my metrics. I guess, yeah, that would be good, but I wonder if that would be something that would be hard to change or not. Or perhaps if the audience had any ideas that would go with the rest of these statistics that I have, like if you were a character in a video game, how's some measurable way you could build your agility or your charisma, for God's sakes.
So you want to build on intelligence, try doing some dual end-back training.
You were telling me about that.
Dual end-back training.
So for people that don't know, dual end-back training, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Simon, is that you are given a string of numbers and you have to remember n, there being your variable, what the last number was a few numbers ago, correct?
Correct. That is indeed. Wait, I'm sharing. This one. I think is for free. Let me share it right now.
So that's something that is used universally in measures of like how hard is the guy focusing and how much can we exhaust his brain while we look at it with a MRI or whatever.
So it does increase fluid intelligence a little bit. So
really.
It is really fun to do while fasting and doing augmented fasting, and to really boost that more hippocampal based fluid intelligence. So you can add that, train that 2 times a day, 15 minutes, and I find that a worthy addition to your transhumanist your
Well, let
trends.
me ask: is there somewhere with this one that you're sharing, or I'm hesitant to jump back to this because I get that infinite tunnel. But what is it something that's measured like externally, and then you could like download the data and have an external record saying, yeah, I did this far with NBAC training, or I got this score?
Well, you have the it gives you a graphical output every day about your training and how it's going.
Okay. All right, I like it. I think that's going to be it. I think that's what we're doing.
Yes, and I have included a link to the Brain Workshop website that Simon has shared. So again, I would encourage everyone to explore this. And now I have a question with regard to essentially approaches toward attaining one of these goals, which is the goal of 8 hours of sleep. Of course, that's a difficult goal for many people, myself included, because we do focus a lot on productivity. But not just that, our schedules tend to become very congested very quickly. And the challenge then becomes, how does one fit in the 8 hours of sleep while satisfying one's other commitments, including commitments to self-improvement and active behaviors that increase health. So exercise takes time. For instance, planning a good regimen of anything, whether it's diet or supplementation, takes time. And then we each have a wide variety of interests in addition to whatever we do to earn a living. And then there are the emergencies that come about, and we live in a very troubled world right now, to say the least. So the emergencies have multiplied compared to a few years ago. So how does one get 8 hours of sleep in that kind of situation?
Well, I have a small comment in that regard. So these are my blue light blocking glasses. So they block. So these glasses block blue light. So I'm able to. I normally wear it right now, but after 5 p.m. I wear my blue light blocking glasses, and therefore I'm able to work on my computer and be on my screen without having the blue light interfering with my natural melatonin production. So that's one of the tricks I'm using for.
I like to jump in on that too and say I use something if my screen's being shared, a program called Flux or f.lux, and I'm not sure if you guys can see this when I change my screen color, but is that changing? Is the color changing? No. Okay.
I'm not observing a color change, but
I do know. My end, then. Yeah.
I do know about Flux because I have it installed on my computer.
Fantastic.
And
so what's Flux? It changes the colors of the screen?
Yeah, man. It takes like 10 seconds to install, and what it does is you set a time during the day. It's programmed for grab your zip code or area or GPS or whatever from your ISP, and then when sun sets over the next 20 minutes, your screen slowly starts dissolving out all the blue light, and you can just feel your eyes relaxing.
Okay.
I'm sure Simon can attest to that. You put on the blue light glasses and you go, oh.
Yes.
But it's a recommendation of mine for sure.
Yes, for sure.
And that's definitely a useful aid. I also have a Fitbit Inspire 2 on my wrist, and it is quite useful for tracking heart rate, the number of steps. So my goal on a daily basis is 15,000 steps.
Jesus Christ. Okay, you're better than everybody.
Well, when you run 6 to 8 miles per day, you satisfy that goal fairly reliably. Essentially, the only times when I have difficulty meeting that goal are days when I am driving to such an extent that I don't have time to fit in a run. But other than that, if I have time, even an hour during the day to run, then 15,000 steps can be easily achieved, especially if you combine that with the incidental steps that you take throughout the day. So now I think we have come to the point in our virtual enlightenment salon where I would like to ask the panelists to pose some of their final questions and comments so that we can still address those thoroughly. Let's start with David Shoemaker. David, what questions do you have for our guests or any observations from the salon thus far? Charlie Cam 2020. Yes, absolutely.
Not on topic, but I had to wear it today. A fascinating discussion, and I will say that I got quite a bit out of it, but I also feel like much of this was really above my level of understanding. And that's one of the reasons I asked about more information, because sometimes I can read through things at my pace, look things up, and do a better job of connecting the dots. So thank you for providing that information. I use a smartwatch that records automatically oxygen level, heart rate as I move, number of steps per day, quite a few different things, and records them in one program. I use MyFitnessPal to track food and so forth. And then I found ways to integrate to get the programs to work together so I can do a minimum of moving data around myself. Because Zach, I greatly agree with you that I don't have the desire or the discipline to sit down and write this information down.
Yeah, it's but if you can get it automatically recorded, get rid of that bookkeeping stress, then it's it gets a lot easier. You can do the things Gennadi's talking about. You can start quantifying things. If you can use some sort of qualitative measure even, then you can say, well, I did it that day or I didn't do it that day. One of the things of having it called a fortnight of fortitude is that you need to do these things every day for 2 weeks. That's part of the challenge. If you mess up one day and you mess up on even one of them, you got to restart. And part of that is sticking to it and having something that you've got a challenge that you complete 100%. And it's real easy for a lot of things to go 90% of the way and then kind of fade out. But to show your stickiness or your stick-to-itiveness, you finish every one of those 8 things for 14 days in a row. And that's the transhumanist trial. That's the fortnight of fortitude.
Well, I applaud you for that. And I think the idea of making these things more automatic and providing feedback is essential. Like in the watch program that I use, and probably others as well, I get a little star or I get a little graphic that it only does it on a 1 week cycle, but it's amazing how motivated I am to make sure that I don't drop that feedback image each and every day. So
stimulus,
really
cue, reward. It's a power of habit thing, like from that book. Simon was talking about that. But yeah, I got 8,000 steps and my Inspire just went do-do-do-do-do-do. And, I just felt this excitement wave of, oh my gosh, I did it. I set a goal and I attained it. And it was silly, but
So I'm very, very interested in seeing your project as it matures. And I would love to, and I've often had this fantasy of having a personal dashboard where all this information is laid out, and the more automatic it is, you're on the right track. So keep it up. Thanks to the both of you for being here today and presenting.
Yes, excellent. Thank you, David, as well, for your remarks. And now let's go to Jason Geringer.
I have one sort of suggestion that comes from OKRs, or objectives and key results from Google. They got this kind of philosophy where they sort of allow people to fail, to where they don't use any of the metrics as something that they're like held accountable for in a job interview or in an evaluation of their job and stuff. That way, the people are allowed to, go through it without any fear of repercussions happening if they fail, Plus, it would make me feel better about getting killed by Gennady every time, but.
Well, part of it is I wanted this to be difficult, but I wanted it to be attainable. This is something that it took me 3-4 days before I could even make all 8 of these things. And the part of it is that because it's difficult, it's desirable, and you feel good when you complete it. It's the transhumanist trial, not the transhumanist. Do a little bit, and then, I did it or I didn't.
I just let's not later say, oh, well, he didn't even do this transhumanist trial.
Totally no. Absolutely no. But I mean,
right.
If you just keep trying, do it another time. But it's, if you can get all those things recorded and you've got that external feedback, then you can say, I completed the transhumanist trial. Nobody's going to go after you and say, well, you tried it, but you didn't do it, because you're not going to give that feedback to people and show the data that you completed it unless you actually completed it. So, I guess that's my thought. Good to fail. Yeah. Fail more is what makes you succeed.
And I would suggest, Zach, once you have finalized all of the components of the transhumanist trial, there should be some sort of public post about it that various individuals can refer to in order to definitively know what the criteria are. And by the way, Daniel Twett says that Fortnite of Fortitude is a pretty cool name. So,
thanks, Dan.
Yes, thank you to Daniel. And now let's go to Art Ramon for his question or comment.
One of my beliefs is never take fitness advice from anyone younger than yourself, because they just don't know the pain of being older and how things that used to work perfectly fine when you were in your 30s just don't work so well when you're in your 40s and 50s. So I used to do a lot of, like I said, exercise and fasting. That doesn't work anymore. I mean, I used to get sleepy back then. Now I am going to pass out and have a car crash and die if I try doing that. So the body is just, your gut absorbs less nutrients and your body doesn't heal as quickly. And that's what I've noticed in my late 30s. I was able to get back into pretty good shape. But as I entered my 40s, like 41, 42, my joints started to fall apart. And I had to completely give up doing kickboxing and jujitsu just because my joints were in so much pain. And I had to give up doing that and started hiking. And hiking did help me a lot. It helped me recover my joints, being in the heat and the mobility and everything. I managed to do, Grand Canyon hike, do up to 19 miles, 4,000 feet of elevation gain. And I got very fit, but then I lost it all. Now I can barely do the 6 miles of power walking with barely 300 feet of elevation gain. The last time I tried doing a good 500 feet of elevation gain on a hike with elevation, I was dying around 500 feet. So it also got COVID, and I think I have COVID long haul issues. So I've got like the double whammy of aging and COVID issues now that I'm trying to fight against. And I also found out that my hip joints are worn out. So now I can't even run like I used to be able to run back in 2016, which really helped my my heart fitness very well. I had very good fitness when I was able to run and very good circulation, but now I can't run. I have to power walk. And that's only after, a good year of rehab, of power walking and having to quit if I felt my joints hurting. Especially my hip joints, and it took a while to build up back to 6 miles. And I'm probably putting up to 8 miles if my hips don't stop me. But the body starts to fall apart. A lot of the things, like I said, work when you're younger, do not work when you're older. And I think some of it applies to the supplements. I used to take a lot of supplements. I still have a lot of supplements, but I don't think they're as effective as they used to be. I think part of that is just the gut. The digestive system does not absorb it. So it's very difficult for me to kind of get back to where I used to be.
Let me ask you, where are you at with the keystone habits? The sleep, the meditation, the fasting. We spent a long time this episode talking about Simon's combinatorial hormetics. Is fasting something you've ever tried or would consider? Because from what Simon says, it seems like it has some anti-aging benefits, like a lot for mice, and it might be something that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm still fasting. I fast during the workday. So like Mondays through Fridays, when I have a regular work schedule, I stop eating at the previous night around 9 or so, and then I don't eat till about midday the following day. So that's all a fasted state.
So a small remark. That's not fasting. That's time restricted feeding. I consider fasting to be 24 hours without food, without food at all. So that's what I consider fasting. What you're doing is time restricted feeding, which is different, which is just basically much weaker than normal fasting.
Okay, yeah, I did that several weeks back, but it's because I was having a colonoscopy done. It's very difficult to do that long a fast. It requires extreme willpower, and I just don't have it anymore.
Keystone habits, man. That's why you build the willpower a little bit at a time. Well, those habits.
The entire point of combinatorial hormetics is to reduce, as a side effect, the reduction of hunger by using the combination of supplements and getting yourself as quickly as possible in deep ketosis and maybe even in the FGF21 zone without having to literally feel the starvation sensation for days on end, because we know that the supplement combination is profoundly hunger suppressant as well. So you'll be fasting quite effortlessly or reasonably effortlessly. And I think Zach can attest to that. Maybe Zach wants to say something about that.
Yeah, I'll say the first day was hard. I won't deny that. But having done a little bit of fasting before, one interesting thing is that your sense of smell kicks into overdrive. So you open the fridge and you see like the blueberries you bought a day ago or so, but then decide to start fasting. You just, oh my God. But after about a day, especially using these combinatorial hormetics, you take some fish oil in the morning, have some transhumanist cocoa with your flax oil and your MCT oil, ones that Simon was talking about. Have about 3 cups of that spread out throughout the day. And then your alpha-lipoic acid, a little bit of leucine, if you can find one that doesn't taste so terrible. And yeah, the hunger just kind of goes away. And I've been like massively productive the past couple of days compared to when I was overeating a little bit and just kind of goofing off online. Like I've been getting stuff done, and I can anecdotal comment. It was fantastic for me so far for 4 days in, and I did eat a little bit. But
one of the issues I've had when I do a longer fast is I get shaky. It's like low blood sugar or something. I sort of get shaky, and then I almost have to eat to get rid of that shakiness. So I'm not sure what that is, where you're fasting to a certain point, and then I do drink a lot of coffee when I'm fasting or trying to restrict my eating. Then I get to that point where you're shaky, and then what do you do then?
So that's basically your blood sugar is low. It's not being compensated fast enough by the fatty acids derived from the liver. So you have to get used to it, and with each fasting cycle that does get better after a while, and especially with the combinatorial hormetics, with the cocoa, with things like MCT oil, flaxseed oil, fish oil, olive oil, and alpha-lipoic acid, metformin, and leucine. You will be entering the hefty fasty states very quickly with very little hunger and with very, very little issues. So that's why I recommend it so much.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, and I appreciate Simon and Zach coming on today to share these insights. Definitely, you both are a wealth of knowledge, and you have studied this aspect of self-improvement extensively. So I commend you for that, and I commend you for sharing your insights today. The transhumanist trial is definitely an interesting concept, and Zach, I would encourage you to develop it further, to finalize it, perhaps get more community feedback.
I'm testing it right now.
On it as well, and maybe write a post on your experiences. But in the meantime, thank you to our panel for the great questions and interactions. Thank you to our audience as well for your engagement in the chat, as always. And we are quite interested in exploring these subjects, particularly when they have practical relevance to improving human well-being. So along these lines, please keep tuning in every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. And until next time, live long and prosper.